Once upon a time, ... I think we all know the general storybook love that usually follows these couple of words. Girl meets boy, they fall in love, and they live happily ever after. But what happens when it's not so happily ever after? What happens when the story turns from a dream into a nightmare? When heroes turn into villains? That's what it was like for me. The traditional fairy tale love hasn't been my experience. Promises. Everyone has made one at some point or another in their life, and we can all probably think of a time when we might have broken a promise or two. Whether it's made with your pinkies or with a cross my heart and hope to die, a promise is an agreement based on trust and trust alone. My parents made promises to each other when they exchanged vows and rings. They promised to love each other, to support each other, and to never hurt each other. Apparently, he didn't catch that last part. Growing up, my father filled my house with mental, emotional, and physical abuse towards my mother. I spent my childhood with no idea of what a healthy relationship looked like. There were plenty of nights I spent sitting at the top of my stairs with tears in my eyes, listening to the hatred being spewed just a few feet below. My parents divorced when I was 9, but it didn't stop then. When I was 15 years old, I decided to follow my mother's footsteps and separate from my father because he had no concept of boundaries. My junior year of high school, I had the opportunity to invite my parents to a banquet. Because of the constant outbursts that they would have in public, I decided against inviting my father. The next night, he barged into my mother's house to have a discussion about how his feelings were hurt. Well, feelings weren't the only things that got hurt that night. To this day, he holds it over my head and blames his aggressive actions on my decision to save at least a sliver of my dignity. He's tried my whole life to get me not to value my self-worth by dropping lies and insults whenever he can. I thought that I was smarter than that. I thought that I knew the love I deserved, especially from my own father, but what do you do when you're supposed to trust, respect, and depend on someone who does nothing but disappoint you? My father had shown me a love that I knew was wrong. And although my mother, without even realizing it, had shown me the concept of putting on your own oxygen mask before others, she had also shown me an unhealthy dose of tolerance. A little over 2 years ago, I got into a relationship with a guy I met here at Rutgers. He was so complimenting and nice. He took me on dates. He made me feel special. I thought to myself, this is what they have in the storybooks. This is what it's supposed to be like. This is love. Until it wasn't love anymore. It started with mental and emotional abuse. He pulled me away from my friends. He molded me into thinking that me not spending time with him was me not caring for him. That grew into me not being able to talk to any guys ever without him feeling threatened. His need to control me manifested itself in his threats of suicide if I were to leave him. His manipulation blossomed into being a threat to my own life. The night I knew I had to break up with him was when we were having a disagreement and his idea of a solution was trying to jump off a bridge. But breaking up with him was even more difficult and terrifying than anything else. The words, "I'm breaking up with you," in his head justified his response of grabbing a knife. Before I could find out what his intentions were with it, I ran out and I never looked back. The whole relationship had distorted my view of what love was supposed to be like. On the outside, though, no one could tell any of it was happening. On the outside, we seemed like a couple with some issues just like everyone else. On the outside, I seemed happy. Am I enough? This is a question that's crossed my mind more than once. Throughout multiple stages of my life, I've wondered if I was being who I needed to be for someone else. But if you're always trying to live up to other people's expectations of you, how could you ever know if you're truly enough? You know what? You're not enough. You're not enough because who other people want you to be doesn't make you who you are. Other people haven't made the decisions that got you here right now. You are not enough. You are not enough because you can never always do what's right. Doing what's right isn't black and white. Doing what's right lives on a spectrum of grays. You are not enough. You are not just enough because you are more than enough. You're more than who other people want you to be. You're more than the worst thing that's ever happened to you. You are more than you think. We're not often told that. So let's make the decision to tell ourselves. Let's learn how to stand on our own 2 feet before helping someone else up onto one. Let's fix our own crowns first. Let's write a new fairy tale. Once upon a time, girl meets herself, falls in love, and lives happily ever after.